Now on 4, the sort of language an England footballer might use when he's dropped. And be warned, you might find some bits of TV Offal offensive.
Right, Professor, try some of this. It's helium. It's a gas.
No, thank you. I do not take artificial stimulants.
Oh, come on, live a little.
You bastard. You have made the greatest mathematician on the planet sound like an imbecile.
Not so sodding clever now, are you? Roll the titles.
TV Offal, a comedy program with a twist. It's not funny.
And coming up on TV Offal tonight, I've been studying at the Trevor McDonald School of Newsreading and learning to put the emphasis on all the wrong words, just like he does. The gay Daleks avoid the dikes in Amsterdam. We pay a tribute to the late Linda McCartney's dire voice. But we start with a blue-blooded celebrity committing musical harry-carry in our very own Kamikaze Karaoke.
If you want to know what the stars really sound like, here's your chance with Kamikaze Karaoke.
Karaoke. Oh, I love that jingle. Later on in the programme, we'll be hearing Elton John singing Candle in the Wind, and we'll suffer greatly. It's a little-known fact that Prince Charles also suffers terribly from wind, and oral flatulence can strike him at any time, even when he's in the bizarre predicament of singing the C of E's Christian anthem with a congregation of people who don't go a bomb on the New Testament. It's interdenominational and can clearly bring on an attack of flatulence, which is why this is how he sounds to me.
God save our gracious Queen. Long live our new Queen. God save our Queen. Save her victorious, happy and glorious, long to reign over us. God save our Queen.
God save the quirk. I've never heard flatulence like it.
It could be terminal.
It could be terminal. Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Talking of which, changes tone of voice to sombre. I understand yet another celebrity has just taken up playing the celestial harp. And this is how I imagine the BBC's Michael Burke announcing the news of his
Demise.
Another unexpected celebrity bites the dust. On TV, Offal's honest obituary.
Jeremy Clarkson.
Who died today?
It was only this week that Jeremy Clarkson was appearing on Top Gear. Born Jeremy Clarkson was famed principally for his habit of prizing a 42-inch waist into 24-inch jeans, a practice that led to his being nicknamed the human toffee apple. Some called him arrogant, loud-mouthed, testosterone-crazed and vain. Others described him as a human soap on a rope with brute aftershave for blood. His critics were less generous. Some suggested his cards were simply penis substitutes. Psychologists cruelly pointed out that a complete and utter dick had no need for penis substitutes. But it was Clarkson's total lack of intelligence for which he will be best known. Most memorably, he once telephoned the police to report the theft of his radio, his dashboard, and even his gear stick. It later emerged that he'd failed to realise he'd been sitting in the back seat. Clarkson's first TV appearance, age 11, was on Southern Television's programme My Ambition, where he asked to be a crash test dummy. This ambition was fulfilled, and Clarkson became a professional test dummy until he retired at the age of 25. The resultant brain damage led naturally to local radio, and from there to network television. Viewers found it tragic to watch a man of such restricted vocabulary using ever wilder and more inappropriate analogies week after week.
This is espresso. Now that's like the Corrado. One shot of it and it blows your head off. Then we've got instant coffee, the Vauxhall Calibra. And here at the end, filter coffee. Does the job, hits the spot. It's the Ford Probe.
Tragically, Jeremy was trapped in the 1970s, reliving in his mid-40s the glamorous adolescence he wanted, but never had. But the nation will never forget the shameful expose on the Roger Cook programme in which he caught the middle-aged Clarkson enacting an embarrassing adolescent fantasy in front of his bedroom mirror, playing the air guitar and pretending to be Mark Knopfler. It was his reckless disregard for his own safety that led to his tragic death.
I feel a race coming on.
Determined to be in shot at all times, he strapped a TV camera to his car windscreen and talked directly into it while driving instead of looking at the road like a normal person. The end was inevitable. He leaves a gross of 24-inch waist jeans, a collection of Dire Straits records, and a delighted nation. Jeremy Clarkson, who died today.
Linda McCartney was a great photographer, but let me tell you something, kids, when it came to singing in a popular music ensemble, the woman had Van Gogh's ear for music. Yes, she did. Once upon a time, a cruel sound engineer isolated her microphone during a concert, and this is how she sounds to me and every fucker. Disgusting! Engineers roaring with laughter. Poor woman. For all her wealth, she was a victim. She was abused in a past life by Tutankhamun, you know.
They're camp, they exterminate. Better watch your backs. It's the Gay Daleks.
It's time for another adventure with the metallic homonauts as they probe the mysteries of a black hole in their interstellar cottage, the Turdis.
Ask me what sort of day I've had. What sort of day have you had? Don't ask. I went cottaging. Any joy? Not so much as a rimming, so I went to a pet shop instead. Silly cow, I said we don't need any more gerbil. No, I asked the predominantly male staff if they had a cockatoo, and they had a cockatoo, all right. Right. You extraterrestrial turd burglar. Ha 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 ha. And now, to link us into the next scene, why don't you suggest that we fly to Amsterdam and visit a dark room? All right, why don't we fly to Amsterdam and visit a dark room? Ha 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 ha.
Sometime later.
We are totally anonymous. Yes. Pass me a pessary. I have an itching pile. You should try Preparation H. No, I used that stuff once on my mouth. What happened? My mouth got smaller and smaller until I could only eat peas. Ha 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 ha. Who is that holding my plunger?
I'm Jeremy Paxman and I love it.
Hello, I'm Rory Bremner. Hello, I'm Ian Hislop.
Oh my God! Half of British television is here. TV stars, exterminate, exterminate. White wee wee in the dark, white wee wee in the dark.
Join the Gay Daleks next time as they go bobsleighing. They'll start by slaying Monkhouse, and then Geldof, because they don't like Mondays.
Instead, I say, want to see a dodgy video, Governor? Hey, mate, cool blimey, what you doing in my manor? If dodgy videos are your bag, they don't come much dodgier than The Golden Shot, made by ATV. People who lived near the ATV studios in the early 1970s all pretend now that they had no idea what was going on inside. No idea, but they knew. Oh, yes, they knew what went on each Sunday afternoon, the degradation. Why was it so terrible? Consider the host, Charlie Williams, a man who ignored the radical black power teachings of Malcolm X and preferred instead to spook footy white folk in broad Lancashire.
It's what we call a special show.
That's special as in special school or Special Olympics. But I'd like you to get a grip now, kids, because this is what Charlie's blindfold cameraman really looked like. It must be a face, it's got ears. Was this whole show an elaborate send-up? Why was it so terrible? Here, for example, is the beautiful but tragic Anne Aston. Why tragic? Well, because she was called Anne Aston.
Because if you hit the other...
But unfortunately, she couldn't read Anne Aston. Why was it so terrible? I give you assistant Lee Patrick. Is it possible that the woman enjoyed a drink before the show? Perish the thought. ATV wouldn't have permitted booze on its premises, would it? So what was it that caused her not to give a toss about the prizes?
But she'll also be getting this neat little radio.
Not to remember the names of the contestants.
And I'm sorry, what's your name?
And even to make it perfectly clear that she didn't like where they lived.
George Williams from Solihull?
But more later, because the most exciting moment on The Golden Shot was the commercial break. As I was saying, there was more. Or, in the Golden Shots case, there was less. They had big stars, like the famous, completely unknown child singer Michael Ward, whose face appeared to have been hammered from the inside out by a panel beater. Not to mention Lena Zavaroni.
Lena Savaroni.
It's Zavaroni, you stupid simpleton.
And you come from Bonnie, Scotland? Which part of Scotland you come from, Peg?
Rothsey.
Who'd had her tits strapped down to make her look 10 years younger than she was, so that at the age of 16 she already looked like mutton dressed as lamb. Wretch. Up a bit. Wretch. Down a bit. Wretch. Right a bit. Wretch. Fire. And being an ITV programme, there were also tasteful ethnic jokes that made Love Thy Neighbour look like a broadcast by the Commission for Racial Equality.
Two little boys opposite wearing turbans. I said, "Excuse me, are you Sikhs?" Said, "No, not at all. He is Sikhs. I am 8.
I think we should take a short silence now as a mark of respect for the dead. And big money prizes.
A direct hit, my love, a voucher for £3. A direct hit, George, a £6 voucher. See you later.
But there was no later for Mr. Williams.
They've loved you having you on the show for the last 6 months, and you've been wonderful.
Touching, isn't it? That's TV speak, you know, for "That was a disaster, Williams. You're off the programme, and your career in television is finished."
Thank you.
They're all very sorry to lose you.
TV Offal's found another crappy logo of the week.
Starts all high, then goes all low. This week's logo is another gem from ETV, Eastwood Hospital Television. In the past, we have revealed the names of some of the not very many stars who have secretly appeared on this ultra-professional channel.
So please help us to keep hospital patients in the picture in Essex. Okay, Steve, that's all right.
That's right, ETV is the only TV station in Britain where it's possible to appear secretly because nobody's watching. So here is a brief list of just all of the celebs who have appeared. Christopher Biggins.
You're watching Eastwood Hospital Television.
Katie Hill.
I'm not quite sure what they're trying to do to me here at ETV.
The Val Cross Singers, who are world famous in Hornchurch. And whose performances were clearly influenced by the Who's rendition of Hope I Die Before I Get Old. But now, fasten your seatbelts because the latest ex-alumna we've uncovered from the ETV archives is Michaela Strachan.
Ready? Hi, I'm Michaela Strachan and you're watching Eastwood Hospital Television.
We all knew that Michaela Strachan had one guilty secret, you know, that she once appeared in her undercrackers in a tabloid newspaper. But here's a second guilty secret. She once starred on ETV's hit show Live from Basildon Hospital. Look at her, not so high and mighty airs. She's slamming it on hospital television, Miss Strachan. You slamming it, you're disgusting. I eat it, by the way, when you bite into a hot dog and you notice it's got veins in it. Whip pan!
Kamikaze karaoke.
I love Elton John because he sang at the funeral of the Queen of Hearts. She's dead, but the real Queen of England is none other than Reginald Dwight, who is none other than Elton John. Diminutive, gay, podgy, bald as a coot, sexually deviant, malodorous, tone-deaf, reeking of drink. Those are the sort of vile people who have attacked Mr. John over the years. I always liked his singing until recently, but only because I always watched him with the sound turned off. Yesterday, I unfortunately turned the sound up, and this is how he now sounds to me.
And it seemed to me you lived your life like a candle, never knowing who to cling to when the rain set in. And I wanted to know you, but I was lost again.
Your candle burned out long before your legend ever did.
Don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against gays. I mean, some of my best friends are gay until I'm murdered. Apropos of nothing, how many more cutesy-wootsy TV shows about animals can we stick? There's the really wild show, Pet Watch, Vets in Practice, Vet School, Animal Hospital, One Man and His Dog, Pet Rescue, Animal Hard on... Okay, I lied about that one, but look at it. Ah, look, a little purr wrapped up in a rug. But isn't it time that television looked at the darker side of pet ownership? We can do that now because TV Offal viewer, Mr. Completely Made-Up Name, has sent me this amateur pilot programme which he has entitled Animal Hospice.
So what's the trouble with... Is it Alice?
Yeah, she's making this sort of funny noise and she moves her head.
Alright. I'll just put it down flat, like that. So what is it when she moves her head or something? Right, let's just... Yeah. Yeah, that's... It could be... Sometimes they get an inverted grip, becomes crooked, and you can straighten it. It's a little... Come here. Let's try it now. That's not bad, is it? Yeah. Well, that's fine. Oh, let's come back. Well, she's probably got, you know, a good 6 months, but not much more than that.
6 months?
It could go at any time, really. But I mean,
I can't bear not 6 months of that noise.
You don't like the noise?
Really, it gets on your nerves, you know.
Yeah. Well, we could. Do you want to put her back in the? We could put her in the hospice.
Hypocrites of the week. Voice starts all high and goes all low. It's great being in this wonderful business, ladies and gentlemen, that I like to call the show, ladies and gentlemen. But what a topsy-turvy, ladies and gentlemen, place the world of showbiz is, ladies and gentlemen. There's that Alexei Sale, who once said he'd never do a voiceover for TV, but now does exactly that for banks and unappealing BBC trails. And about Esther Rantzen, she presents programmes about how awful overweight schoolgirls feel when they're teased about their weight. So how come she spent 20 years poking fun at fat women on That's Live? Must have been a typing error. Thankfully, Ben Elton has none of these tendencies. The man may be deeply unfunny, but at least he's not a hypocrite. Don't believe me? Well, this is Ben telling the man with the golden tonsils, Melvin Bragg, that he insists on keeping his TV performances free from any trace of bad language.
I've never sworn on TV. It was stupid. You'd lose your job.
And in case you missed that, he reiterated those same views in 1997 on BBC Two's Face to Face programme.
It's a great discipline not to swear. I appreciate the fact that television told me not to, because it meant I learnt that you didn't have to necessarily.
So it must have been another Benjamin Elton, who was on BBC One 3 or 4 weeks ago presenting this laugh-a-minute comedy show that's about as funny as being born dead with cancer.
Shitbag! Piss bollocks! Buggering out! Dickhead! Ass bastard! Shit! Piss off! Toss! Bollocks! Shag! Bollocks! Bugger all! Shit! Bollocks!
I've never sworn on TV. It was stupid. You'd lose your job.
Next week, we ask why Andrew Lloyd Webber, Frank Bruno and Paul Daniels haven't left the country yet, even though they promised over a year ago they would if Labour got into power. If it's a question of money, TV Offal will happily provide one-way tickets for the three of them.
And now it's time to show the secret films, the clips, the stars hope we'd never see, the shows that failed, derailed, and never made it to our screens. We bring you the pilots that crashed.
This week's pilot that crashed is a US beauty pageant that turned out very ugly indeed. Only one programme was ever made because nobody dared broadcast the result on terrestrial American television. And is it any wonder when the jury included twisted, foul-mouthed midgets complaining about Jerry Lewis's excellent charitable telethons?
Jerry Lewis can kiss my crippled ass. Fuck him, that asshole. He's been doing this goddamn telethon now for like 30 fucking years. I haven't seen dime one. Nothing.
Racist members of the Ku Klux Klan unenlightening us with their forthright views about black people.
Yeah, I'd like to say, wake up, white people. People, the Bible tells us that if we don't obey God's laws, statutes, and judgments, that he would send wild beasts to rob us of our children and make us few in number. We have not obeyed God's laws, statutes, and judgments, and he has sent the beast. The beast that he has sent is that wild, filthy, stinking, savage jungle animal, the nigger.
Well, I'm no prude, unless you count those 8 years I spent as president of the National Listeners and Viewers Association, but even I find it difficult not to blush during the talent section. Listen to this charming ditty. I wonder why it never made it to the Eurovision Song Contest.
Fuck the president, fuck him in the ass, fuck the president's wife, fuck her in the ass, fuck the congressmen and senators and their wives too.
I'll tell you why it never made it to the Eurovision Song Contest, because she's American, and America doesn't take part in the Eurovision Song Contest. That's why, anyway. The whole song was a disgrace. Totally unfair to the president. He doesn't do that sort of thing at all, no. He prefers to be urinated on, while a nurse connects his nipples to a car battery with electrodes and a whippet with the head off his rammed stump first in...
I know a guy whose peculiar vowels sound like they're coming from his bowels.
It's really impossible for me to overstate
just how important spices have been throughout history.
It's nice being lard. I can't make out a word he says. It's nice being lard. He'll burger in your day's race.
From through the keyhole to Master Chef, Lloyd will administer the kiss of death.
Mussel and butternut squash soup with tasted pumpkin seed.
Whose house will Lloyd be in tonight? He's TV's most persistent parasite. Call, rent and kill before it's too late. If the boys round to exterminate. It's nice, being large. So nice. Elaborated, cogitated, undigested. It's nice, being large. So nice. The grossest gross man. But now we must stop, cause our lawyer says that Lloyd will sue.
Oh well, kids, it looks like blind screaming hedonism won out again. Well, we've seen about everything this week. The gay Daleks in a dark room, foul-mouthed midgets. But I haven't got time to harp on about that because I have to phone somebody. And I mean that sincerely. I really do.
Hello?
Oh, hello. Is that Huey Green?
Yes, it is.
I'm sorry, I had to insert the words "the late" into this conversation on account of you dying before transmission. It's Brian Biddle here, Chief Senior Remote Controller of BBC Everything Worldwide Television and Everything.
Oh, my goodness gracious me. How are you?
Very fine. How are you?
Oh, not bad, but a touch of hay fever.
It's that time of year. Huey, it's rather sensitive. Are you still interested in presenting?
I'm sorry?
Are you still interested in presenting programs?
Yes, of course.
I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm buying the format of a show from the States. And it really does need somebody with associations with the 60s and with the 70s. Mm-hmm. Could we meet to discuss it?
Well, indeed. I mean, when is convenient for you?
Well, are you busy at the moment?
Not particularly. Well, I have a lot of things I'm doing, but I mean, anything, which is along those lines, I'd be delighted to, juggle time around and come and see you.
Shall I tell you what the show is?
Yes.
It's called I'm a Talentless Old Has-Been of a Fucker Who Reminds Everyone of Black and White Television and I'm Pissed All Day.
Right.
Would you be the star?
Well, I don't know about being the star, but I mean, I'd be interested.
Right. For the money?
I beg pardon?
For the money?
Oh, well, I mean, we can discuss that.
Right. Do you ever get to...
Hello?
Hello, sorry, I can hardly hear you, Huey.
Yes.
Do you ever get to Television Centre?
Well, I know how to get there, certainly.
Right.
You say a time and I'll come and see you.
Could I ask you one thing first? Did you ever fuck
What?
Did you ever fuck Lena Zavaroni?
Well, you fucked enough, haven't you?
Must fly.
Bye-bye.
Are you pissed again, Green?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, it's disgusting.
Oh, well. You should know.
Bye.
Bye.
As I said earlier, this is how the late Linda McCartney sounds to me and everyone else who heard her when her microphone was isolated.
Another swell TV show from Associated Rediffusion.